There's families like we just saw that are sitting right up front here. There's families like the bands that get together and tour constantly and play together, like Home Alanis. You can see the size of that family, of that band. And there's also families, if we're lucky enough, that we work with. Not always, but occasionally. And sometimes, especially if it's something that not only do we work there, but we share a common interest, like a music store, which any musician knows is just the coolest place. If you're going to work, you might as well work there. You know, if that's going to be your day job, you can't do much worse than that. I've got a couple of musicians right now. They're not only very talented musicians, both in the Hall of Fame. One of which actually was on the very first soundcheck show I ever did 35 years ago, and continues to make music, and will be inducted again with his full band tomorrow night down at the Palace. Again, please welcome two Sammy Hall of Famers, Dave Novak and Gary Frenet.
It's always too high. It's a family night, clearly, and Gerber music is certainly a family. My first real job, and the best job I ever had, was when I worked with friends, fellow musicians, real musicians, surrounded by music and the things that create the music. I started shopping and hanging out at Gerber Music when I was 15. That was the year the Shoppingtown store opened. And I started working there in the early 70s. First at Shoppingtown, then a short stint at Fairmount. Then we opened a store at Northern Lights, which eventually moved to Penn-Can, all of which led to the opening of a wholesale warehouse and a distribution center. I have extremely fond memories of those times working with some great musicians as well. It was all musicians: Mark Capani, Phil Owens, Jimmy Johns, Tom Nava, Rob Robbins, and of course, although not a musician, a certain musician friend, Gary Petsidlik, who in the early days before Gerber's ran Waltz Records. And I don't know if anybody remembers those days. I'd walk in there and Gary would tell me what I wanted. And he was right. Anyhow, I just want to thank Bill and the rest of the Gerbs for all they gave me during those real formative years, and sadly what I turned out. But anyhow, it was a good experience at the time. And now I want to turn it over to Gary, who will do the induction speech. Thanks for being here.
I'm just going to have to hold this. While a music store might seem an odd choice for the Syracuse Music Hall of Fame, consider that the Sammys have already inducted a TV station, Channel 9, a newspaper, The New Times, a radio station, Galaxy Communications, and a New York State Senator, where he went, Senator John DeFrancisco. The Syracuse Music Hall of Fame is a big tent with room for everyone and everything who has helped our music scene to thrive and grow. And while acknowledging the importance of all the previous people and institutions I've just named, I would argue that none of them had a more wide-ranging effect on our music community than Gerber Music. Long before I became an employee myself, a proud member of the class of '77, I bought records and gear there, and I was well aware that nearly everyone who helped me find what I was looking for at Gerber's was in a band. Something as a kid from Bridgeport I could only dream of doing. So I hung out at the Shoppingtown store, I listened to the talk about gigs, I checked out posters for bands playing at Captain Max and the Brookside, and Campus Inn and Jabberwocky, and dreamed. And it was because I got hired at Gerber's in the summer of '77, thank you, Bill, that I met Paul Armstrong, Tommy Allen, and Artie Lennon, and we became the Flash Cubes. We were a total product of that environment. With stores in DeWitt, Fairmount, and North Syracuse, Gerber Music's influence was felt throughout all of Central New York. Aside from the fact that as a total music head, Gerber's was the only job to have, it was also a breeding ground for numerous bands over the nearly 20 years that they were in existence, from 1964 to 1982. When I look at the list of employees that Terry and Bill wrote up from memory, I can immediately name the bands they were in. Dave Novak, Jimmy Johns, and Tom Carr were in Cross Creek. Dave Pasternak, Living End. Yeah, give it up for Dave. Mark Hoffman, who's here, Jam Factory. Steve Garb and Gary Jenkins, who I worked with at Chopping Down and Cocoa Cafe. Peter Heitzman in Mind's Eye. Bruce Tetley in Homegrown. Gary Zamory and Joe Jewell from Freeze. Ducky Carlisle in 145. Steve Carr from Stephen Eaton the Chances. Charlie Robbins from the Tearjerkers. Ducky Carlisle, Harold Osborne from Oz and Biz, and the list goes on and on and on. And those few that weren't musicians, like Mark Olick and Tom Prouda, got involved in live sound companies. Still others like Bill Dutch, Randy Potter, George Field, Bill Baldwin, and many more were walking encyclopedias of music knowledge of every genre. Right? Yeah. Lastly, Gerber Music was a store started by a family that made everyone who worked there feel like they were part of that family. If you were a Gerber employee, you didn't just know Bill in Shoppingtown or Gene in Fairmount. You knew everyone in the family. Bill's wife Debbie and their kids, his sisters Terry and Heidi, his brother Leonard, and of course, the ever-present Mrs. Rosenblum, Bill's grandmother, a Fairmount fixture herself. I have nothing but fond memories of my years working at Gerber's, the constant thrill of new music and instruments coming in the back door daily, the never-ending influx of customers who shared your passion for music and became, in many cases, lifelong friends, the long lines at the cash register at Christmas, the endless laughs with some of the funniest people I've ever known, Mickey Sage. You know Mickey Sage? What a funny bastard. The legendary Christmas parties, and the knowledge that long before SoundScan, AllMusic Guide, and smartphones, we could find any song a customer was looking for because we were all such music junkies. Right? Gerber Music didn't just nurture the Syracuse music scene, it was a music scene all unto itself. Thank you, Bill, Senior and Junior, Gene, Terry, Heidi, Leonard. Welcome to the Syracuse Music Hall of Fame.
I would like, I know there's a lot of them in the audience, a lot of my former employees to come up here and share this moment with me, please. Mark, and Bill Dutch, and Randy Potter, come on all up here. Okay. I'm bloody well ready. Now at least I have hair. I want to thank the Sammy committee for honoring our family business and bringing back some great memories and all the fun we had with these guys.
I'm fine.
It's great to have my family here, my brothers and sisters from Boston, my daughter Jackie coming up from Baltimore, who spent many hours behind the cash register in Fairmount Fair, my sister Terry, our family historian, and the glue that holds our family together. Yeah. Yes. And the icing on the cake, as far as I'm concerned, is having so many of my former employees come out tonight to celebrate with us. I know my mother is here someplace. Yes. She's had 2 vodkas and she's floating around. Champagne too. She might be at a Grateful Dead concert, I'm not sure. A little history, real quick. I don't have a long speech, but when I was growing up, I loved to listen to music, and I charted WNDR and WOLF's playlists and kept track of them. And I produced my own top 25 chart every week. My father was in the wholesale record business, and he noticed what I was doing, and he collected my charts, and he sent them on to the major record companies that we represented. He was the owner of a record distribution company. In 1964, we had an opportunity to open a store in Shoppingtown, and he asked me if I would be interested in running it. And I said, sure, fits my lifestyle. We open at noon and close at 9. So we went out and bought a ton of records, fixtures, opened up in Plaza in Shoppingtown. We ran a big ad on October 12th, 1964, 50 years ago. Wow. We ran a big ad. Monday was October 12th, 13th. Kids were off school. We're going to be slammed. We took in $132. True story. True. The next day, kids were back in school. I sat there by myself for 9 hours and took in $31. Over the years, we opened up additional stores. We opened up central distribution, and we got into musical instruments. And the thing that amazes me, and I still love listening to music, I love going to concerts, and I just amazed that with all the technology changes in the music business, that you still see the Fender Telecaster, the Fender Stratocaster, the Fender Precision Bass, the Gibson Les Paul as instruments of choice to musicians all over the world. And that to me is unbelievable with all the changes. And Fender amps, Marshall amps, it's great to see. It really is great to see. Oh, and I need to tell you, we sold concert tickets, and we had a little file box underneath the counter. And we actually sold tickets to Woodstock, and they were $8 for the weekend. A lot of money in those days. And we kept the money and the tickets in a little box. I think that's just about it. Yeah, that's it. I thank you very much. I thank Sammy Committee for having us, and I really want to thank all my employees for coming out tonight.